Welcome, my friends, to another YouTube version of the BJJ Brick Podcast. I hope you enjoy the show, and if you do, please subscribe to the channel. So here we go.
Thank you for listening to the BJJ Brick Podcast. We'll be bringing you Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and good times. We hope to flatten your Jiu-Jitsu learning curve, help you get the most out of your grappling ability, and meet your goals both on and off the mat.
Welcome back, my friends, to episode 211 of the BJJ Brick Podcast. I'm Gary. I got my partner in Halloween in here with me today, Byron. How are you, Byron?
Gary, doing great, my man. Excited. This is the our big Halloween episode. I think if we were going to go out trick-or-treating this year, one of us would be Wayne, the other would be Garth.
Well, you know, the other good thing about doing jiu-jitsu is you all always have a costume. You know,
That's
worst
true.
case scenario, just put your gi on.
Just put your key on.
Yep. So, I mean, it works out great. And then plus, you know, a lot of times with a gi, when you're trying to steal somebody's candy, a lot of times they won't mess with you. They'll see that you actually train. So definitely not a bad idea.
Yeah, but do add cauliflower to your ears and kind of make it a little bit more exciting than just wearing a gi around, getting candy on it.
Yep. And make sure if you are staying at home and passing out candy, don't give out cauliflower. Kids don't like that.
Yeah, that's not cool. That is not cool. We're taking a firm stance that is not appropriate.
I always hated the people who would pass out toothbrushes. You know, there was always one person every year that would pass out a toothbrush. And it's like, I don't want a toothbrush. I want candy.
Gary, that's coming back to the story. First off, what is the episode today we have?
The episode today we have is the autopsy of the unconscious grappler. So basically what we're going to talk about is not how to put somebody to sleep, but we're just going to go back if you got tapped, if you got choked out, you know, let's go back. Let's figure out what we did wrong. Let's figure out how to correct that. You know, how can we do that to make ourselves a better grappler?
But the name has a cool Halloween ring to it. Man, That's going to be great. I'm excited. This will be a fun episode. I think we're going to learn a little bit as we get through it, and I hope the audience will learn as well.
Yep. Speaking of learning, let's take a little life episode from jiu-jitsu.
Yeah?
When I was young, I was always kind of a bad kid. I did good in school. I was good in sports, but I always caused issues. I was a troublemaker. You know, I really can't believe that I haven't ended up in jail, prison. I for some reason I hung out with the wrong crowd. But you know, one thing that you always hear about in jiu-jitsu is dojo storming. And one thing that I used to like to do, in one year I did this, is me and my buddies, every time we went, you know, up to a door, we would try to, after we got our candy, we'd try to throw a firecracker into the pumpkin that had a candle in it. So it would explode and blow up the pumpkin at the same time and scare people. We thought that was funny, when in all reality that was stupidity. But so I made the mistake of one house we did it at, and even though we had costumes on, you know, so I figured we were anonymous. You know, one house we went to, it blew up while we were on the porch. Normally we like to, you know, get off the porch before it blows up, and, you know, hopefully there were other people on the porch and they didn't realize who did it, but they realized it was us. Then, you know, that was just a family. And then...
Did they give you cauliflower?
No, they didn't. Or they probably got regular candy. I don't think we got a toothbrush.
Okay.
Because if we did get a toothbrush, I probably would have, you know, sharpened it into a shank and protected myself of what's coming next. But what came next was there was a big kid that was a year or two older than me that actually lived at that house that I didn't know. And I knew who the kid was, but I didn't know his name or anything.
Yeah.
But as the explosion happened, he came to the door, you know, because he heard his parents screaming and everybody screaming. And he looks and he sees that it was me. He recognized me and knew my name. And there were three of us, but he knew who I was. And he yelled, "Hull, I'm going to get you." You know, my last name is Hull.
You probably blew up his pumpkin that he had
Yeah,
carved.
probably.
And you did a real good job.
Yeah. Never blow up somebody's pumpkin. But what he did is he started chasing me around the neighborhood, me and my two buddies. But you know, I was always a very good, you know, I was a little skinny kid and I could run forever. So I ran fast. I ran hard. And he was a big kid, and he couldn't keep up with me. But what really scared me is he knew who I was. He said my name as he, before he burst out the door to chase me. So then I started thinking about what happens when I get back to school. I'm going to get beat up. So basically, this kind of reminds me of a dojo storm going wrong. Don't dojo storm. Dojo storm is no good. Blowing up pumpkins on Halloween is not a good idea. You're going to get yourself in trouble. You may think it's funny, but it's not funny. Somebody could get hurt. I'm lucky he never did beat me up. He was probably the smarter guy. Talked to his parents, and his parents probably said, "Hey, that guy's a piece of trash. Let him go." And so I escaped from getting beat up, but I did spend a couple days, worried and trying to hide at school so I wouldn't get beat up. So life lesson is, do not blow up pumpkins. Be a good kid. Be a good adult. Do not dojo storm schools. Do not mess with other people, and you shouldn't have any issues.
Wow, a lot of learning going on here, Gary. And what Gary didn't tell anybody, this is the time when he actually ended up moving with his uncle and auntie out in Bel Air.
Actually, not Byron. You had that wrong. This was, I know if you listened to episode 210, you heard about my audiobook, or actually real video. This is when I moved. My uncle Louis told us we should get out of Parsippany, New Jersey, and move to California. Plus my mom lost her job at that time. So if you don't know what we're talking about, go back and listen towards the end of episode 210, and this is where this came from.
Yeah, Gary, one of Gary's best audiobooks. They turned it into a movie, feature film, major motion picture.
Yep.
Did well.
Won 7 Oscars, so a great movie.
Gary gets almost no credit for it. I think at the very end of the credits, you might catch his name. It's kind of blurry and hard to tell.
The thing is, a lot of people actually do call me LaRussa.
Yeah, that is true. Of all this stuff, and as the episode, Karate Kid Part 1, 2, and 3, it's all follows
4 and
Gary's
5.
life. How many
6
is there?
and 7. I don't know.
I think there's 3.
There's maybe 4.
So Gary was out there being a kid, being ornery, playing games, and he learned a lesson.
A kid, that was last year, Byron.
That was last year. But, as adults, oftentimes we kind of quit playing games. And I think that as kids, or as sometimes as adults, we learn things when we play games. And I wrote an audiobook, a real one, called 6 BJJ Training Games. And the goal of these games are to help you get better at jiu-jitsu faster, help develop your team, and discover your unique game. And then also it makes jiu-jitsu more fun. So there's really a lot of benefits to playing the games that I've listed here. They're all training methods that I use and have got a lot of use out of as far as developing the grappler that I am today. I've mentioned a few of these games on here, and they all have like really nice descriptions to what's going on when you do these games. But Ragdoll, it doesn't sound like a fun game, and you know what? You kind of got to be a little bit in the right mood to play Ragdoll, but you're basically going to kind of get beat up and trying to get tapped out. So you're gonna be giving up position constantly, and you're playing defense a lot, but you're going to learn how to relax. You're going to learn how to let the other person work very hard, and you're just going to burn very little energy. And Ragdoll may not be the perfect game for somebody who's brand new. And so on all these games, I'll tell you like, who this game is good for. If you're brand new, Ragdoll's probably not the right game for you because you're getting beat up already. But if you're one of the more dominant players at the gym, to let the other people kind of work a little bit and have you work on your defenses, work on your escapes, work on your submission escapes, these things, Ragdoll definitely brings those games right up into your face and makes you deal with them right then. And there's 6 of these games, and that's a short description of Ragdoll. But the book is a little over an hour long. It's $5.99. Check it out in the show notes, and I'll be happy to help you get past any plateaus you might be on, or just find more creativity in your game and discover what you need to work on next with playing these 6 BJJ games.
Yeah, definitely check it out. It's going to help your game. It's going to build teamwork and bonding, and going to make your game better and make you smile. But you guys also owe me. I know me and Byron did. Byron ran a lot of these games by me and practiced them a lot on me. And I got Byron to take off one that really, really hurt me. One game Byron wanted to put in, it was kickball. And I basically talked him out of it. Well, I couldn't talk him out of it because my voice was really high pitched for a couple days. But I got that one off. So you guys owe me that. Kickball is not on there anymore.
Hey, Gary, that's pretty good, man. I'm impressed.
Thank
you. Last week, Gary read to us a quote that was about the world of fencing. It's better to attack than it is to defend. So I found another quote about fencing. This one is, train like you've never won, fence like you've never lost. That's just a great way to help you when you're training, and a great way to help you while you're competing. Training like you've never won, and grapple like you've never lost, or compete like you've never lost. So get out there and train like you've got the energy of the up-and-coming athlete that really wants to prove themselves, that wants to do the best they can. A lot of times you'll see the champion kind of rest on their laurels and their past accomplishments, and they come out and they're not as good as they used to be. Something's happened there. They're not training like they've never won. They're not training like they have a burning desire to win that title because they already have it. Sometimes champions are able to keep that title and keep that passion for defending it. And others just kind of like, I want it. I'm going to win my next fight too. And they don't have that desire, and they end up not doing well. And then the defense like you've never lost. Get out there and go for it. Go be brave, be courageous. Go out there and act like there's nothing to lose out there. And a lot of times you'll do better. If you're a type of grappler who likes to compete and you get there and you're kind of timid, that's the kind of attitude you need to have. You're not going to lose. You're going to go out there. You're going to have a great time. You're going to fight very hard, and you're going to find a way to win. If you go out there and you're probably reckless and you have had a lot of short matches that didn't go in your favor, maybe you shouldn't go out there and compete like you've never lost before. You're probably too far on the scale of aggressiveness versus defense. But as an interesting quote, definitely to help you train harder, just think of it as this match next will be against the best person you've ever competed against, and you need to be ready for that.
That actually makes me think about my audiobook a couple weeks ago where, you were talking about how to, ways to cheat, to win a tournament. And, the second part, fence like you never lost. Even if you lost every match, come in with a belt, come in with all sorts of accolades, medals on your fencing outfit, and, let everybody know that you've never lost, that you're a world champion, and, hopefully, the bracket will clean itself out. So, we've had two good weeks of fencing quotes, so it's kind of neat.
Yeah, I'll continue to look for some more. If you have a favorite quote that you want to send us that we have not talked about, which I guess you don't need to vet that we've never talked about it because this is episode 211. So if you haven't heard it in a little while, or you think that we might not have heard of this quote, send us a quote and we'll be happy to present it to the audience and share your quote. So that'd be kind of fun. Send it to bjjbrick@gmail.com. That's how you get a hold of us.
Just a little funny about these fencing quotes. To be honest, I wasn't familiar with fencing. We talked about it earlier. I wasn't a very smart individual. But so Byron asked me to get a fencing quote. So I was like, okay, perfect. I got a quote.
How much?
$2,500. Some guy came in and, looked at, putting a fence in our backyard. And hey, the good thing is I'm now getting a fence put in. So thank you, Byron.
The good thing is. Yep. So, hey, much like Gary's fencing quote, it's better to get more than just one. So we've had two.
They always say get 3 quotes.
Gary got one.
Yep.
Hopefully you found a good person on the first try.
I did. And I asked him for a quote when he was here. And basically what he said, always use an auger. It's more efficient than digging by hand.
Oh, man. Yeah.
Yep. So, we can use that one next week as another fencing quote.
I'll say this one. Call before you dig. I remember one time building a fence with my dad, and you see that chunk of wire come up that's about as thick as your thumb. And all the neighbors are mad they don't have internet anymore.
Did that happen
cable
to you?
TV. Yeah, we sliced a pretty good cable.
It's funny you say that because I did the same thing. I actually called, and the electric company came out, the gas line came out, but the phone company did not come out. And so I was on my last hole with an auger, and I drilled through the cable main. The main,
wow.
Not just a drop. And so like you said, they weren't very happy, the neighbors. But I took a bunch of pictures of it and everything, and showed that it wasn't marked. So when the cable company did come out, that they couldn't charge me for it because never got marked.
Yeah, mine was similar, but I don't believe my dad. I was helping I don't know how old I was, a kid, helping my dad put up a fence, and we get this auger, and we're digging and getting these holes put in, and sure enough, before this, my dad is super friendly to cars passing by, and he lives in like a corner house, so there's lots of traffic, and he's waving at everybody all day long. He's waving at people. Everybody sees he's out there building a fence, and then about 3:00 in the afternoon, nobody has cable anymore, and they all know he did it. We called the cable company, and we're like, hey, I think we cut your wire. Everyone's mad at us for not, the cable's cut, and they said, yeah, we'll be out there in about 3 days. They were out there like an hour and a half because hundreds of people have called in and complained about their cable being out, and they had like 4 guys out there digging and repairing that damage we had done. Not the best move, and I still tease him about that occasionally if we're going to be digging.
Yeah, and that's why Byron had to move from New Jersey to California.
Man, Gary, you like to bring up the hard stories. But Gary, let's get into the heart of the episode here, where this is the last episode of the month. It's a Halloween spectacular, and we basically made it a Halloween spectacular by having Gary tell us a story about his childhood. The title is Autopsy of the Unconscious Grappler. What's going wrong? Like, it's important when you get tapped out. Okay, you don't want to get mad. You don't want to get it, take it personally. You don't want to be ashamed of it. If you could look at it and learn from it, you'll be far better off.
Yeah, definitely. This still kills me. It makes me think, like Byron said, you got caught in a submission. You want to learn from it. I still think back early in our career. For some reason, I got really good at, moving north-south and, catching a Kimura out of it.
Oh, I remember those.
Yeah, and Byron hated it.
I did hate it.
I had one move, but, it was my brick. And I'll never forget, Byron actually even took a private with a guy and, to ask him that, and what Byron got out of that was, don't get in that position.
I remember that.
And not even telling you how not to get in that position. So they just went over something else. So, the cool thing is back in the day, Byron was actually, practicing this. Hey, I made a mistake. How do I correct that mistake so it doesn't happen again, or to keep it, the occurrence from happening as much as it does. And, when you are grappling and you do get caught in something, it's great to get caught in stuff because that's a learning time. I always tell people that if you're not getting caught, you're not training with the right people, or if you are the top dog, you're not putting yourself in positions, to get caught. You do need to get caught. You do need to, get tapped out, and you do need to keep an open mind and learn from that. And so definitely, just because you're unconscious or just because you got tapped out, don't think of it in a bad thing. Think of the positive. I now can learn from this.
That's a big deal of having that attitude about when you get tapped out. If you train long enough, you're gonna tap out somebody, and they're gonna be mad. And generally, they're a new person. They're gonna hit the mat with their hand and say cuss or just be like damn, or they show frustration. They show that they're angry. Maybe not at you, maybe at themselves. But that's to me. 10 years ago, in my head, I'm like, I'm beating this person up even more. That's a switch. That's not what we're doing here. You're mad at me for this. Well, prepare to be even more mad. And that's what I would generally do. Which I can't say that that's totally the wrong thing, but it's not what I do now. Nowadays, if I tap you out and you get mad, we're done. You're not in the same training mode I am. And there's really not any value to you getting tapped out. There's not value to me pissing you off. We might finish the round. I'm not going to try to even tap you out again. And next time it's time to roll, probably not going to pick you. And until you can figure out how not to get mad at yourself for getting tapped out. I remember one time, it really wasn't that long ago, maybe within a year, I tapped somebody out, and it was a white belt, and he was upset, and I'm like, okay, this kid, he's a little too worked up, a little too competitive, and one of the purple belts go, oh yeah, big deal, you got tapped out by a black belt, oh, rough day, and the kid like looked at him and was like, he kind of like switched, like, oh, you're right, like I'm supposed to be getting tapped out. That's how you get better. And from then on, the kid was normal, and he wasn't mad at himself or mad at me. I don't know. And I don't know who you're mad at when you're mad at somebody for tapping you out, yourself or the person who did it. But it flipped that switch in that kid, and he became, that moment, a smarter, more trainable grappler. And so just by controlling your emotions, sure, you can be disappointed in yourself for getting tapped out, but more, be curious what happened. Like this is a skill-based thing, and clearly you're missing something that somebody knows about grappling, or they have something that is exploiting a part of your game. You need to learn from that.
Definitely need to learn from it. And I was thinking of yesterday when I was grappling, I was training, and I got caught in a armbar position. I was really, I couldn't move basically. I had my arm protected, but sooner or later it was going to happen. I was going to get caught in it. And, I tried to, get out of it. It did not work, and, ended up having to tap. But at that point, I still didn't know, it wasn't the arm bar that necessarily got me. It was the setup, how my opponent got to that position. And, I'm not going to stop the match then. I mean, I slapped his hand and said, man, that was awesome. But when we were done with the round, I then took a couple minutes to talk to the person, like, hey, what happened? It happened so quick that, I missed some stuff. What did I do wrong? What did you do? And, I just picked his brain to figure out, hey, what can I learn from that? What will keep me from getting in that position? Do I need to, did one of my arms, leave at my side? Did I overextend? And, don't ever be afraid to, after it happens, to talk to your opponent. And, any good training partner is going to tell you. The guy Byron was talking about, the person who gets mad and just wants to win, that person may not tell you because he wants you to keep doing it so he can tap you over and over again. But any great training partner, any good person is going to evaluate your game, tell you what they think you did wrong. And it not only helps me, the person who got tapped out, it's helping the other guy too, go over it in his mind. He's thinking about what he did, or maybe even there's something he could have done, where I couldn't have defended for, 30 seconds like I did. Maybe, by him playing it over in his head, he can figure out how to, not even have to worry about breaking my grip. How can he strip my grip right off the bat, or how can he make it so I can't even get my grip where he doesn't have to strip it?
Yeah, I remember being probably a blue belt and being at a competition and having 3 or 4 guys there with me that were competing. And one of my teammates goes out there and gets triangled and loses. And the whole time I'm thinking, man, I do that triangle to the same guy all the time. I should be helping him get out of this triangle instead of just lighting him up with it when we're training. Not only did he get caught in the tournament, he gets caught at the gym with me, and I didn't help him. I felt kind of bad about that, but at the time, I was perfectly comfortable with tapping him out with as many triangles as I could while we were training. I didn't understand the value of helping him get out of these triangles. So at the tournament, he would do better. And then I felt disappointed in myself more than him that I had not helped him figure out how to get out of a triangle, because obviously he had trouble with it, and he showed that in the match. And not that all triangles are that escapable, but you know what I mean? Like, I felt bad that I let my teammate down, and he didn't even know I felt that way about it. But help your teammates out.
Yeah, it just shows you're a good training partner. You care.
Now.
I mean, no, but even, for me looking at the outside, you really worked your triangle game too. You do have to, you can't always just put a triangle on with your training partners, halfway so they can get out of it. You do have to put your triangles on a lot of times full force. You have to control the posture, so he can't get up but there's a give and take, so I think it really definitely helped your game. I remember back in those days that your triangle was nasty. But just thinking what you're saying, you saw your training partner, you put him in it all the time, and maybe you guys didn't really drill getting out of it. Maybe you just drilled, putting the triangle on, and I remember back in the days where, you bought the Ryan Hall triangle DVD, and on Friday nights, me, you, and Dee and Taylor sometimes there too, we'd sit there and just work off of that video, and we'd do a couple chapters at a time, and just keep practicing and practicing. And man, we'd put each other in triangles, and I'd wake up the next morning with a sore neck. But it really did help me. We were working both offense and defense. I guess I don't train with really high triangle level people, or maybe I got good, just don't get caught in them much. But not too long ago, I got caught in a triangle, and I tapped out. And the same thing, what did I do wrong? And the one thing I have trouble with is when somebody breaks my posture down. And so I started looking for ways, like my posture's broke. I'm in a triangle, and I'm, all my escapes are from, getting posture to get out. And I couldn't really find anything, if my postures broke down. And that's where I'd always get in trouble. And then out of the blue, I just saw on my Facebook feed, Henry Gracie showing a triangle escape where his posture was broken down. And I have been spending a lot of time, working on that with the guys I train with. We'll put them on full force. We'll put it on, we'll drill it with very little force just to get used to doing it. And, it's just one thing. I realized, I was about to go unconscious. I was about to become the unconscious grappler, as Byron says. But, hey, let's work on it. Let's figure stuff out, and, let's learn some new techniques. And on top of that, not only is it going to make me better on getting out of a fully locked triangle where my posture's broken, I'm going to get better offensively because I'm working on it. It seems like offensively I miss my triangles if I don't break down the posture. So, it's helping both people.
If you could take it outside of just helping yourself and you help the team, it does also help you to help the team. it benefits everybody. Going on, we have a little list here about stuff that we want to talk about with the unconscious grappler. Something to ask yourself. How are you getting tapped out? Is it always the same thing, or is it a variety of techniques? For me, it largely depends on your training partners. Gary mentioned a story of when he used to just get me with that north-south Kimura, and man, he's not kidding. He could, if he passed my guard, he would go side control, and I could not stop him from going north-south. If he got north-south, which he did every time, I could not stop his Kimura. It was like a failure of my guard resulted in 10 seconds later me being caught in a Kimura that I would not escape. It was just, that was going to happen if he could pass my guard. So I had to play guard like crazy to try to let him pass it, but it was what's happening. So in that situation, it's more Gary than it is me, because not everybody's Kimuring. In fact, Gary was the only guy that was Kimuring me. I maybe I had an average Kimura defense, but Gary's offense was through the roof on that one. So I need to look at, what is Gary doing to me that's different? But if you get caught by everybody in a Kimura, clearly, you're doing something that's crazy wrong. If everybody... my Kimura is pretty terrible. If I catch you in a Kimura, okay, you got a problem with what you're doing, because I'm not looking for Kimuras. I don't like to necessarily finish a Kimura, and it was just handed to me if I'm going to try a Kimura on you. So those are two different things. So if everybody's tapping out with different moves... You're becoming well-rounded. You're kind of seeing different things. If you're getting caught in guillotines all the time, or everyone's taking your back and choking you out, those are problems more of your game, not necessarily running into their brick. So figure out is it your problem, or is it their offense that's really good in that area, and kind of work from there. It's I got a private lesson to try to figure out how to get out of Gary's Kimura, and it didn't really help me, but. Because the advice I was given is don't get in that position. Well, I need more help than that. But reality is, most people can't get to north-south on me as quick as Gary could. And so it's more about Gary than it is about me. Most people aren't doing this to me. So, if I could tighten that part of my game up, it's going to help me a ton with anybody from going north-south. Because if Gary can do it easily, that's going to be well worth the time to invest in how to prevent people from go into that position anyway. But just like Gary, is it you or is it the person who you're training with that's causing the submission? I think you could just look at it. Is it always the same submission regardless of who you're rolling with, or is it a variety of submissions? And if it's a variety, you're probably becoming pretty well rounded and not making any major mistakes everyone's capitalizing on.
Yeah, that is a good point. Is it you or is it the guy I'm grappling with? But you make some points about figuring it out, and sometimes you can't figure it out yourself. Byron's a black belt at his school, and let's say I'm a white belt, and no disrespect against white belt, I just hate to say like, hey, I'm a white belt. It's like I'm talking bad about somebody, but let's just say there's two unexperienced jiu-jitsu guys training, and one guy's getting caught, can't figure it out, and the other person really can't figure it out either why that guy's doing so bad. Don't ever be afraid to ask your instructor. Don't be afraid to ask other black belts or higher level people in there, in your gym. Your gym's a team. The gym gets better as everybody in that whole gym progressive. You guys are all, working to make the whole school better. And, by doing that, the higher level people are going to help the lower level people. So don't be afraid to ask. Let them, maybe the higher level student or instructor is going to watch you and try to figure it out. But, if something is happening to you and it's happening over and over again and you can't figure it out yourself, ask questions. There are no dumb questions. And if you're at the right school, everybody and their brother out there will help you out.
Yeah. But if you're going and you're rolling with, you roll with Gary for 5 minutes and he catches in a Kimura, and you go and you roll with Nick for 5 minutes and you get caught in a rear naked choke, and you go roll with Jake and he catches you in a sweep that sets up to an armbar, likely, you're kind of not making one major mistake over and over again. You're getting caught, and that's part of learning. And but it's not the same. If you go and everyone you roll with is doing the same technique to you, you got a problem with what you're doing. You're doing something wrong. And because sometimes people aren't looking for things, and if you hand it to them, yeah, they'll take it. And so it warrants some deeper looking into about why are all the times I'm tapping, it's to an armbar. That's a good question. And there's an answer to that, and it's technical. Your elbows are too far away from your body. You're reaching too much. Or everybody at this gym is an armbar race. And if that's the case, then you run into a whole bunch of bricks. But and so maybe that wouldn't be you. But more than likely, if the same technique is landing on you time and time again, you got a problem with that technique.
Yep. I'll never forget, I hadn't been training very long. And, Byron was training there also. And Byron got very good at a armbar from the guard. Back in the day, that was his brick. He had a very good armbar with a guard. And I would get caught in it all the time. And as our friend Joe Thomas knows, that I would go home and put peas, frozen peas on my arm, as Joe likes to bring up to me. But it was funny, I was new into my career, and back in those days, there weren't a lot of high-level people. I didn't ask a lot of questions, and I kept getting hit with it over and over again. And because it was more of a hobby to me, and this was back, there wasn't even a lot on the internet back then. You remember back in those days, Byron, there wasn't just a ton of stuff like there is today. But, I never really researched it on my own. I just kept getting caught into it time and time again, and just figuring, okay, I'll go work out some more and get stronger. And, next time Byron does it, I'll lift him up and slam him. It's like that was my meathead mentality. And I'll never forget Jason Bircher, who's been on the show. One time he comes in, and Jason's a very talented, instructor, very talented jiu-jitsu guy, but he's also just kind of like we were talking about, on our last guest, Andre, just a great guy. And Jason made me feel really comfortable, and like I was never afraid to ask him anything. And when I first started, I wasn't the guy who would ask questions. I felt like it was my place to be quiet. I was horrible. Put me in the corner and, just beat me up. So what, I asked Jason the question, which I've been wanting to ask people, but I never felt comfortable. It's like, Jason, why am I getting caught in this armbar time and time again? Jason didn't, he gave me a quick answer, and he's like, hey, your arms are, and when I say quick answer, he gave me a quick answer, then expanded on it. He's like, you're extending your arms. And, he showed as you extend your arms, it makes it easier for Byron to catch one, switch his hips and hit me in the submission. And then he spent like 5 minutes, explaining it, just really breaking it down into a way that I could understand it. And I had never heard the term T-Rex arms before, but, he's like, hey, be T-Rex arms, keep your elbows close to your body, keep your arms close to your body. As your arm drifts away, the alarm should start going off that you're in trouble, and the guy, who you're competing against, he's going to start licking his chops and see that arm going away from the body and look at that. He's got a trophy to take home right there. And, it just made sense to me. And, ever since that time, it was like just all of a sudden a light bulb went off, and, I wasn't getting caught in that anymore. And, it's just, it took me, somebody that I felt really comfortable with, to ask a question. And then that person went out, instead of just giving me the one word answer of, hey, your arms are extended, just took the time. And this was a guy I really looked up to. So, to me, it was a big deal. He's taking the time and explaining it. And man, it just really helped my game. But that's one thing I'll never forget that happened early in my career that really changed my game.
And I remember that, and it was game changer for both of us, because you figured out how to defend it. I'm like, my armbar sucks now. Well, really, you gained a defense.
Yeah, and it really wasn't a defense. It was just, not only did that help me for everything else, because it was more, just staying in perfect position. And it helped me in all parts of my game. I'd reach a lot in different positions. And, just from that, and it's not like he just told me don't reach when we're in somebody's guard, don't reach from a lot of positions, and really made a big difference in my game.
So there's two different, I guess, places to learn: training on the mat with your teammates, and competing on the mat with people you don't know and people who may not have your best interests at heart. And you could learn, you could do an autopsy of what went wrong on either one. And so we've been mostly taking this from the training's point of view. And the biggest thing we talk about is ask. Ask your teammate, what am I doing wrong? How can I get some help? Ask your coach, what am I doing wrong here? What's happening that causes me to get caught in the same move over and over again? And those are good questions to be asking. Another one you could ask is ask yourself, am I in a funnel? Is my teammate funneling me to this particular part of their game over and over again? And so if the person gets a takedown, slice past your guard with the knee cut pass like they've done 100 times before, and armbar the forearm, that's a funnel. Like, you can't disrupt that and cause it from not taking from one to the other. You're going to be continuing to get caught in this funnel. And this is somebody who has been training this particular set of techniques, and it's going to flow very smoothly for them. So that's a question you should ask yourself. Am I in their funnel, and how do I get out? Because you don't want to end up at the bottom of that thing that ends in going to sleep or tapping out. And so that's one more thing you could ask yourself while training. And also that works a bit in a tournament setting, but largely you don't know their game necessarily to figure out if it's like happen to be something that they do very well, or was it just something you got caught in? Another thing you need to ask yourself is, if you were playing your game, let's say, I'll just talk about my game for a minute here. Let's say I get Gary, and he's working his guard, and I'm working my guard pass, and I decide to work my over-under pass. So I'm working that, I'm working this, I'm trying to get the angle right, trying to get my feet right, and Gary Kimura's me. Okay, that's different than if I'm just trying one of 9 different guard passes and Gary Kimura's me, because I know what I should be doing for this pass. I know the pass works great. It's an awesome over-under pass. It's a great pass. But Gary caught me in this thing. So I need to figure out, what did I do wrong with my technique that caused me to get caught? It wasn't like a blatant accident, but clearly Gary was able to exploit something that I did that is in my game. My over-under pass isn't the best in the world by any means, but it's not bad. I could pass a decent amount of guards with my over-under pass, but if Gary catches me in that Kimura, I need to look at it and say, okay, clearly he found something in this that I'm doing wrong. I need to tighten that up. It's not a major change. It's just, you're just changing, you're fixing a little, you're tightening up a little screw that's a little bit loose. You're tightening up your game a little bit, and that's a very valuable thing to do while you're training, is to say, I was in my game, he was in my funnel, I was going to do my pass, I had it set up, and I got caught. what happened? That's a big question, opposed to just trying one of 30 different guard passes and getting caught. You're getting caught all the time.
Yeah, you're getting caught with, a pass that you're really well known with. You know where you should be going. You're very familiar with it. But you were talking about competition, and a lot of times in your own gym, everybody gets to know the same moves. They kind of know each other's games, and you may not get exposed as much as you would, in a tournament setting where you may see that a little bit more often. But I think that's one thing that happens with me and you a lot. Even though we've grappled with each other and, spent numerous rounds on the mat with each other, we don't train in the same gym. So we're not learning the same stuff. We have totally different stuff. And so me and you are always coming at each other with different stuff, and we have to do that. We have to sit back and figure out, this may be my game, but how come it's not working on Byron? It works with my training partners to see it all the time. But I kind of like that you're the one who can expose stuff in my game. I can expose stuff in your game just because we don't train with each other. I mean, we still train with each other probably every other week. It's kind of weird. We're on a radio show every week, but we don't yeah, it's kind of weird. But I think that really helps our game. And, we both help each other out so much. And, just like Wednesday night when we were grappling, we went 80%. And we just, attacked each other's legs the whole time. We're just, and, not that we were, looking to hurt each other or anything, but we were looking to make each other better. We were both working. But I think, in a situation like that, just because we don't know, we're learning different stuff that, may take one of us out of our element. And then, then we will sit down and help each other out with that thing we're unfamiliar with. So I definitely think keeping that open mind and, as we've talked about earlier, talking with your people, can figure out those holes and ways to remedy that situation.
Yeah, I think we are in an interesting kind of a grappling place here where we don't grapple every week, but it's not much more than every week, maybe every other week or every 10 days or so we'll get on the mat. But it's really like, go try your best, and then go out and get better, do your things, do your training, and then try again when we get to try it again. And like Gary has helped me a lot with my leg locks. So Gary says that we were working on getting our leg locks, but really, Gary's helping me with my leg locks. I'm not really helping him much.
Oh, no, you're definitely helping me.
No. But so here's another thing. Gary showed me one of his favorite leg lock setups and showed me the details, and I'm really doing this leg lock pretty well. But I hit one of my training partners, and it's like I couldn't do it to him. And he's like, well, with the gi on, this other guy is telling me with the gi on, that's a little bit tougher to finish than with no gi. I'm like, well, that makes sense because it was no gi with Gary. Gary loves his technique, but with the gi, I'm going to have to change it up a little bit to do this technique to everybody. And it's just like the inside of that training partner helped me, and then I make a few adjustments when I have the gi on. And that's just having a little bit of variety helps as far as that's gone for me. Another, like with the tournament stuff. So training partners, they should help you. They should be open for questions, show you stuff. Tournaments, a lot of times they'll help you too, especially like, not the adult black belt division. Like if you're at a tournament and it's people are there with their families, people are having a good time. A lot of times you could ask your opponent, like you get to know them a little bit. I recommend that anyway. Where you're from, where you train, and just be a friendly person. And it's kind of cool to learn where the people are coming from that are rolling with you. But a lot of times you could ask them, what did you catch me? That was crazy. And they might show you. They may not. That's up to them. But hopefully you could have a little video of what you did, and you could show it to your coach. You could review it a couple times. And a lot of times those techniques you end up respecting a lot, and they might become your better techniques. I remember I got caught with something, and it was like I was real fascinated with that technique for a long time. And it really motivated me to get good at it because I knew that it worked. And this guy like wiped out half the division with the same technique. And I'm like, that's a cool technique. I want to learn that. And so just the value of using a little bit of video, maybe you look at it, you still can't tell what's going on. You show it to your coach. Maybe they could help you out or show it to some of your teammates. But I think the video in tournaments is a good tool to help you learn and not just to show everybody on Facebook what happened.
Yeah, and I mean, not just video from tournaments. There's nothing wrong with videotaping you and your buddy rolling too, and it's always fun to watch that and videos from tournaments or any videos and just you think you roll a certain way, but then you see it and you're like, oh, it just seems like I see so many more mistakes that I make, and I just remember when we had Zach Maxwell on the show, and he was talking about how he'll watch a video and he's like, oh man, I'm so terrible. I can't believe that. And, I just remember thinking, man, this guy's like, my hero. This guy's like, I watch his stuff and I'm amazed. And here he is watching his stuff and saying, oh man, I made a bad mistake. But he's picking apart, little things he's doing, and he's tweaking that to make his game better. I just remember it just crazy coming from, that high level of a jiu-jitsu guy talking about how he watched himself and, thought he was terrible.
So I think really with the tournament stuff, video and another set of eyes is a great way to evaluate or do that autopsy of what went wrong, or even when the stuff goes right, what could you have done differently and learn from it. And that's really what we're trying to do here is learn from what happens on the mat and make yourself better.
Yeah, and we really don't like the video part here because as the first music video that was ever played on MTV, it was called Video Killed the Radio Star. And, the radio star, today's radio star is a podcaster.
Yeah.
So we want to make sure we're still around and relevant, in 10 years.
Yeah, we're pushing hard to try to get all the Samsung, Apple to stop letting phones play videos. We want them to be back to flip phones. Audio is what we want here, guys. Yeah, they don't listen to us, but we're trying.
Yeah. We'll talk it through a move.
So we talked a little bit about doing this autopsy and figuring out what went wrong or how do I get out of this technique. That's really two different questions. There's preventing the submission and there's escaping the submission. Those are two things that seem alike, but they're way different. Preventing the submission, for me on that example that Gary brought up when he was killing me with that north-south Kimura, which I think he could still do, but he just got bored with it. Give a guy a break. It's boring to do the same thing to Byron all the time. So to prevent that submission, I need to stop him from passing my guard. I need to stop him from going north-south, keep him in side control, not north-south. I need to stop him from locking up my arm. Those are all prevention measures. And all those, to me, are better and easier than trying to escape the submission, which is valid. I mean, try to get out of that thing if you want. But it's easier to prevent the submission typically than it is to try to escape the submission. Same thing with Gary's talking about getting out of a triangle. Man, it's tough. Somebody gets a triangle that's locked up and has your posture. That is tough to get out of. But if Gary kind of realized that I'm isolating one of his arms, maybe have wrist control, maybe trying to get one of his arms out of my guard, he starts posturing up, and I can't get my triangle. I can't even start my triangle. It's like, okay, I had to do something else. He didn't have to escape my triangle because he prevented it to begin with. And I think those are two different questions. You could be asking, doing this autopsy, how come my escape failed? Or how did I end up here anyway in the first place? And how do I not be there to begin with? And two good questions. You need to know how to prevent the submission. You need to know how to escape the submission. But I think you're far better off preventing them when it's important. It's good to train with everything. But if it's important, like at a tournament or something like that, prevent it. Don't escape it. Prevent it first.
And I know our buddy Joe had an article about that we talked about a couple weeks ago on the show, or a month ago. It was really good. But, I think back to my game, and there's a guy that, I tell Byron's my kryptonite. He just beats me, badly. Makes me feel like I'm never trained before. But I then go back and evaluate what I did. And, it's kind of like what Byron said. I let my half guard get past too easily. And, this guy's got a very good side mount, and, I'm in trouble once I get there. And, so then I'm like, okay, why is he passing my half guard where I'm sweeping other people with it? What is going wrong? And, I realized that I think I have very good sweeps and I can upset people's base, but, his base is very good and I wasn't getting it upset, and I wasn't doing anything else. And so what I realized, after dissecting it and watching some Tom DeBlas videos is my I wasn't framing well enough. So now I've really been working on my framing from, the newest grappler I roll with to, the most experienced. I kind of almost like to, when I'm working on something that, needs work, I kind of like to start towards the bottom, the grappling hierarchy and work my way up. And I'm just, on anybody I'm working with, I'm really working really hard on the framing process. And, instead of just working for a sweep, I may hold somebody, or if I'm a better level than that person and could sweep them, I may, just work frames for a little while before I go for the sweep or something else, just to, to make my game better. So once you figure out what's wrong with your game, make sure you are working that. You're practicing on all different people. You need to correct it, and you're not going to correct it just by somebody telling you what it is and you practice once or twice. You need to work on it. And because at your school, that may not be in this month's curriculum. You may be doing other stuff. So you may want to come to class early and work on it. Or Byron always, stressed this to me is, when you're rolling, roll with a purpose. And what your purpose, what my purpose is now is to, work on that framing. So I'm working on it with everybody I roll with. And that way it keeps it fresh in my mind. And that way I'm going to get better at it.
Okay, this has been a lot of fun here talking about how to dissect what went wrong with your grappling there and get better and move on from it. But it's called Autopsy of an Unconscious Grappler. Have you been choked unconscious in your jiu-jitsu career?
I have not, Byron.
Man, lucky guy.
I tap. But I know there's jokes that come on so quick that you don't have that opportunity. But I've always had the opportunity, and to be honest, I don't want to go out.
Yeah.
I know it's going to happen someday, but oh well.
It's so I don't think it's really healthy for your brain to be shut off like that from oxygen, and I don't have a desire to be choked unconscious, but I've done it at least 3 times, possibly 4, and the 3 that I can remember are within like 5 years. They're pretty recent, and I'll run down them real quick just for fun. The first one I could remember. It's called a suicide choke. So it's a choke you set your hands up in the gi and you let them pass the guard. That's like the suicide aspect of why they call it that. Like you're letting them get something. So it was actually a demonstration of the technique.
Wait, Byron, are you talking about being choked unconscious during jiu-jitsu?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Never mind. Yeah, I have 0.
So the guy was demoing the technique, Jake was, and he's like, "Can you get out of this?" I'm like, "I'll give it a shot." And so I passed the guard, which is supposed to happen, I guess, and I'm thinking, hey, I made it, this is, I'm going to be okay. I just got to create a little space for my neck. And next thing I know, he's asking me, did I go out? And I'm like, leave me alone, man. I'm just trying to get some sleep here for a minute. Like, I was really tired. Like, I was exhausted. Like, I was just comfortably in bed. And like, oh, I did go out. Dang it. And then I had to I was going to lay here for another minute. But really, it was like a few seconds go by. Like, got to get up. So I got choked unconscious during the demonstration of a technique while they asked if I can get out. And I said, yeah, probably, maybe. So I gave it a shot. I didn't feel it coming that fast. Another time, I was rolling with like a good blue belt. I think I was a brown belt at the time. And he threw a triangle on. I told him, I said, man, nice setup. Because it was a very nice setup, very slick. And I'm thinking, this is going to be a bit of effort to get out of this thing. So I start getting ready to defend it, and next thing I know, he's waking me up. It's like, what? I was like, that happened so fast. He's got big leg, kind of big guy, and he just slammed that door closed before I had a chance to even think about tapping. I was thinking about escaping. And the other time I could remember, that the most recent time anyway, I was working, and this was probably over a year ago, I work in an over-underpass. I'm down low trying to get this over-underpass, fairly new to this pass, and I think it was a purple belt. I know it was, yeah. This guy was a purple belt. He's got my gi. He got his hand in my gi collar, and I'm working the pass. I'm trying to ignore it. And I went out. Like, he choked me because my problem has been I didn't think I was going to go unconscious. If the choke is tight and I know it's good and I'm in a bad position or I feel like there's no hope, I'm going to tap every time. But if I think that I could get out of this thing, that's when I get into that trouble area. That's when I've been put out a couple of times, is when I think I'm going to get out. never intentional. It's not good for you. So I don't know how bad it is, but it's definitely not a beneficial thing that happens to your head. You got to protect the brain. That's pretty important.
Yeah, we definitely want to protect the brain. But I'd like to thank our guests this week, Gary and Byron. I don't know much about the Byron guy, but that Gary guy, he's really something special.
He's spot on, man.
Yep, he's spot on. Hey, Byron, I think it's time we should get to the Gentleman Grappler.
All right.
Yes, so we have a great article from the Gentleman Grappler, and this one will be perfect for Byron. Byron does get in street fights, and this is the top 5 jiu-jitsu street fight moves. And the first one that comes to my mind is the guillotine. It just seems like, you see a lot of, flailing punches. A guy comes in with his head down, and puts himself in a bad position. And, the guillotine happens a lot in street fights. And not that I would know, because I only go to fights to the death, which I'm 28, 14, and 7 in fights to the death. But the guillotine is definitely a good street fight move, and can put somebody to sleep and end it real quick.
Yeah, it's kind of a thing. If somebody comes rushing in, my wrestling's not that great, Gary, but a lot of times I could keep a good wrestler at bay because they know the guillotine's there. So my sprawl might be a little bit slow, might not have that much force behind it, but you wrap up their neck and they definitely learn to respect that. The next technique on their list here is the double leg. I say this is fine if you want to get the fight to the ground and get on top. Those are probably decent ideas. The idea of picking top 5 moves for street fights is kind of a silly idea, I guess. But double leg's fine. Coach John would not have let this one be on the list if your knees hit the ground as you're doing your double leg. So he's like, if you're on the concrete, you're gonna pay the price when that rock hits your knee. So be able to do a double leg standing up the entire time.
Yep. Next one, I think, is a little more practical. A clinch takedown. A lot of times the punches are wide, the punches are, flailing. People don't understand the aspect of distance, so they're just trying to take your head off. So as they're swinging with all their might, they're coming into you and, giving away that space. So, you'll end up getting a clinch position. And from there's a lot of takedowns you can do from there. Your knees aren't going to hit the ground. Hopefully you're going to end up in the top position where you can, stall it, till the guy quits, or you can, rain hammers down and end it pretty quick. But I wouldn't necessarily recommend that. A lot of times the takedown may happen on concrete, on asphalt, and, if you start punching somebody, their head's got no give, who knows what's going to happen to that person.
Hold on a second, Gary. I got blade nose. Damn it.
Okay. Man, we just talk about street fights and Byron's nosebleeds.
Give me a second here.
Okay.
Unbelievable, man. I've been sneezing so much I got blade nose. Okay. got it stopped up anyway. Might be more nasally.
Yeah. So I was talking about the clinch takedown, and I just wanted to let you know we're talking about street fights. I am such a bad ASS when I talk about fighting that Byron just had to take a break on air here because he got a bloody nose. So that just shows you, I've got the chi.
Man, that's going on the app. Oh, man.
Yeah.
I legitimately have a Kleenex set up my nose, and podcasting must go on here. Going down the list, arm bar. I don't know why this is on the list, Gary. I would not arm bar somebody on the street unless I feel like I'm in like a life and death situation and I just have to injure this person at all costs. A lot of times, skilled grappler doesn't need to hurt their attacker, and you could just kind of control them, calm them down, and convince them that fighting you is a bad idea. I think the chokes are all a good option to end the fight and walk away, leaving the person uninjured. But to armbar somebody, to feel that arm popping in there, and know that you might be like legally responsible for what happens to this person's arm, even though they could have attacked you. And like they go look into your past. Oh, they're a fighter. They're a professional MMA, or they grapple all the time. The judge might not like that. So yeah. I don't know about seriously injuring or maiming somebody unless you feel like this person's trying to kill me, or this person is really
it'll take
serious.
them out. Yeah, it'll take the fight out of them.
Yeah, so it could save your life.
I know you said Yeah. I know you said you don't think the armbar should really be on the list, but I read a little bit farther down. What I thought is cool is his disclosure. This list is compiled from watching hours of people fighting it out on the streets on YouTube. So he's probably just watching YouTube fights and, putting a one next to clinch takedown, as each one of these moves comes.
Oh,
so,
yeah, armbar is there every time. I mean, you get mad at somebody, they will hand you that armbar. Autopsy that submission. You lifted your arm up by their face.
Yeah, if you're on top, most people are going to start throwing punches. They're not looking to escape. I mean, if you're on bottom, of a mount, they're probably going to throw punches, not understand that, they're giving you a limb.
Yeah.
The last one is a rear naked choke, and we see that happen all the time. The fight gets to the ground for some reason, either a takedown, a clinch, or, somebody slips in a banana peel. It happens all the time. You take the back, set the hooks, rear naked choke. And I even see a lot of YouTube videos where the rear naked choke is, set with no hooks. So, and everybody sees the rear naked choke, in UFC, and it's kind of like the guillotine. You see that all the time. And so a lot of untrained people are throwing those on too. But not that we're advocating getting in street fights. This is just a different, article and, kind of what they're seeing in the YouTube videos from street fights.
Yeah, definitely not advocating this, and this is more of a self-defense thing, which I think has value to it. I'm going to add one to the list that I think is very important. Knee across the stomach, knee on belly, and also like the ultimate tie-up from top there. You kind of I don't know if you call it gift up, ultimate tie-up. You wrap the arm around the back of them.
Gift wrap. Yeah, gift wrap.
Those two are great. Knee on belly, gift wrap. So part of the problem with real life situations is there might be another person. You might be beating me up just fine, and maybe Gary decides to help me out, and he ends up kicking you in the side of the head or stabbing you in the back. And being able to see around is a big deal. So knee on belly really gives you more vision.
Bless you.
Man, getting my butt kicked today.
Yeah. Yep, definitely getting his butt kicked. Yeah.
So that's just a technique that if someone is interested in self-defense, I always think knee across the stomach is a great one that has a lot of value.
Yep. And speaking of, YouTube videos, check us out on YouTube. We are on YouTube. We are on Instagram. We're on Facebook, which is our biggest one. We have an email address, bjjbrick@gmail.com. Definitely check us out. And we have a brand new app. The app, definitely download it. Go to the Play Store, iTunes, and give us a review. Let everybody know if it's great, which we think it is.
Yep. I'm going to air a little clip here from our YouTube video, BJJ Brick Q&A. It's going to tell you how to cut down most of your injuries. I think it's an important question, and I really like the answer that I gave. I think it really makes a lot of sense the way I train, and I can hopefully help you avoid injuries as well. So I'll add that clip here. Welcome back to another episode of BJJ Brick Q&A. Today, I'm going to tell you how to avoid about 90% of the injuries that could happen to you while on the mats. This is BJJ Brick Q&A, where you send in your jiu-jitsu questions and I answer them in a format just like this. Let's get to the question. I have a question about injury prevention. I am 45 years old and recently received my blue belt. I was a white belt for about 3 years, and I was often plagued with needing to take time off to heal an injury. As I look at BJJ long term, it appears to be unsustainable for me to be training for many more years. My question to you is, how do I continue to train BJJ and not get hurt? Thanks, Frank the Tank. Thank you, Frank, for the question. I know that we all have concerns about getting injured. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is a contact sport where things are going to happen sometimes. And I do have a solution for you that will cut your injuries drastically. It's how I've been able to stay on the mat and stay very happy and healthy. I've been training for about 15 years, haven't had to have any surgeries, and have had no major injuries. I continue to learn about how to avoid injuries, but I've learned something pretty big recently that I think could help you out. How big is it that I don't get injured? Jiu-Jitsu for me is a passion and a hobby that I love, but it is not my job. I have a job that requires me to be physically healthy and able to do it. If I go to Jiu-Jitsu, which is my fun thing, and I get hurt, I can't work. I can't earn my income. I can't do the things that bring me money and finances. So it is a big deal that
I don't get hurt at jiu-jitsu. Same thing for you. You may not need your body to do work. Maybe you work at a computer all day, or maybe you don't do anything that requires physical input or output. But you only get one body. You have to maintain it. And like you were saying, if you want to jiu-jitsu for the long term, you need to maintain a healthy course of action to do that. So I totally agree that you need to be able to train without getting injured. John Kavanaugh said a quote, and I won't get it perfectly, but he said, you need to be able to upgrade your software without damaging your hardware. So the software, what's in your head, your skill and your knowledge of jiu-jitsu or anything, it needs to be able to be acquired without getting beat up so bad that you're having negative effects. It's a very smart way to train, and that's what we're going to be looking at today. The simple way that I can tell you to avoid all of your injuries in the future is basically to take responsibility for any injury that you get. It sounds kind of weird. It sounds kind of like it doesn't make sense. If you own all of the bad things that happen to you, you'll suddenly kind of realize what not to do on the mat sometimes. I have a couple of stories that involve me that I'd like to share with you here, Frank, and maybe they'll kind of relate this to you. When I was a brown belt and purple belt, triangle choke was my favorite technique. That's what I did. If I was going to tap out a belt above me, so a brown or a black belt, it was going to be a triangle choke. That was it. That's the only thing I had that could actually catch these guys. Now, that being said, when I got to my black belt level, I'm still doing my triangle choke a lot. I really love it. It's one of my favorite things. And I started experiencing lower back pain. What would happen is about 1 out of every 50 times or 30 times, whatever, I get stacked while doing a triangle. Sometimes I finish, sometimes I don't. About every 10 times getting stacked, my lower back pops. It suddenly hurts to put my shoes on, and it's just a miserable experience having that lower back pain. Kind of just take me out of the game for a while. This is unacceptable. It's not for me to blame the person who's stacking me while I do a triangle. What did I do? I took triangle chokes completely out of my game. Frank, you could be trying to pass my guard as a blue belt, and you could be handing me a perfect triangle. I'll probably turn it into a omoplata. I'm not going to triangle choke anybody anymore. That's it. It's that simple. Am I missing a few submissions? Probably. Have I developed a really good omoplata because of my triangle has been put on the shelf? Yeah, I think so. Can I teach a good triangle? Absolutely. But is it something that has historically caused me about 3 times, maybe one more or less, I'm not sure, but several times to miss feeling like I could do my job? Yeah. I quit doing triangle chokes, Frank. That was my favorite move. So I have training partners that are getting into the blue belt range which have never experienced a triangle choke by me. And they won't. I don't think that I'm going to change this. There's just no reason to introduce a technique that gets me hurt a certain percent of time, higher than 0, that I'm doing to myself, really. I can't blame the person who stacks me. That's a valid escape. If I get triangled and my lower back gives out and there's that little pop thing and it hurts to put my shoes on in the morning, that's not acceptable. Take it out. So if you're doing something that is getting you hurt, take it out of your game. Own the injury, look at it and say, what happened? How do I avoid this? Okay, move on. Now, a lot of times you get injured just rolling and it's nothing that is reoccurring, but maybe it's the people you're rolling with are just a little bit too much. Maybe they're too aggressive, or maybe they don't have your safety in mind, Frank. What you do in this situation is you talk to them. You might sit somebody down and say, hey, my big goal, I want to have a good hard roll and have a good time here and really get the best training I can, but I don't want to get injured. That's my big thing. So if you feel like you're going to injure me, consider that a tap from me and just let me go. That type of conversation. If the people that you feel are rolling with you are really aggressive and wouldn't be receptive to that, it's okay to not roll with somebody, Frank. This isn't Fight Club. You're in this as a social and a fitness activity. It should be fun. If you look at somebody and you're like, this guy's probably going to hurt me if I roll with him 10 or 20 times in a row, I'm going to get hurt. Stop rolling with that person. If the conversation is not going to work and say, hey man, I'm a little nervous about rolling with you sometimes. I are worried that I'm going to get hurt or something bad's going to happen to me. If that conversation, if you don't want to have that, there's plenty of people in the world with that aren't that guy. So that's another thing. It's not his fault. That's who he is. That's who he is as a martial artist. But you don't have to roll with that person. Take that responsibility for that injury that is received by the rough guy, and put that away and avoid that injury. Because that is, again, my fault. If I get injured rolling with somebody who I know is likely to hurt me, that's my fault. I can blame them, but that doesn't help me. If it's my fault, I won't roll with them. I'll talk to them before the roll and change the situation so it doesn't happen like that. The next example I have about how I've changed things for myself is tapping. You got to tap early enough. And the big example for me is the Kimura. I think the Kimura is a super dangerous technique. I tap quicker to Kimuras than I do heel hooks. In fact, my Kimura avoidance is pretty good, but I won't roll out of a Kimura. That to me is unacceptable. Once I start rolling, the other person starts rolling with me, and when things catch up to me, sometimes that door could get slammed kind of hard to finish the Kimura. I don't have any shoulder injuries. I just know that that's an injury-prone technique. So I can't really tell my partner, hey, don't Kimura me. Although you could if you do have an injury. And I do talk with my partners and say, hey, safety is a big deal to me. And really, you get the tone. If you don't need to have that conversation with everybody, but if you're getting the tone that the safety is not important to your training partner, have that conversation. But if someone's got me in a Kimura, I will fight it. I will try to get out. And I usually do pretty good. But there are certain levels that I won't cross. I'm not going to roll out of it, because I think that is a thing where I might get hurt. I lose control over how my armor is placed. Sure, I might have a great rolling Kimura escape somewhere hidden deep below my pile of quick tapping jiu-jitsu Kimura escapes, but I'm not going to find that, and that's okay, because my shoulders are both good. And there's a reason why they're both good, is because I tap early on Kimura. I don't try to just desperately get out of that. You can just think of the same thing with a heel hook. If you don't know which way to roll on a heel hook, just tap. You roll the wrong way, you're going to injure your leg. So I think the idea of all three of these, like I don't do triangles anymore. I make sure the people that I'm training with are safe. And I tap early on submissions that could be dangerous to me. Those three concepts kind of put together are take responsibility for your safety on the mat and your safety of your training partners. Somebody injures you, don't blame them. Look inward and see, how could I have prevented this? And then make changes to what you're doing. Look at all your old injuries and look what's happening. Something reoccurring. I don't know about you, Frank, anything in particular, but if it's something that you're doing, change it. If it's something that your training partners keep doing, especially if it's one particular person, talk to them, or just don't train with them anymore if you don't feel comfortable having that conversation. Pretty simple. Once you take responsibility, you'll find your injuries get cut drastically. Once it's unacceptable to get hurt, you'll stop getting hurt. You'll make those smart moves. Another thing, I did like your nickname, Frank the Tank, but I don't really know what that implies to what you feel about yourself. But we all get somewhere in a certain time, certain age, where we have to look inward at ourselves and say, this is the type of grappler that I am. And Frank, you might have been like the real rough and tough martial artist at one point, maybe in a younger day, or maybe your tank days were in college. I don't know where you get the nickname from, but maybe you're not a tank anymore, Frank, and that's not a big deal. We all have to make those changes of the way we perceive ourselves. And if you're thinking that you walk into the mat and you think you're a tough guy, and you're blue belt, you've been training in about 3 years, you're doing great. But if you being that tough person is getting you injured, that's costing you training time. It's damaging your body. And in the long term, you could either become a blue belt that washes out, that was a really tough blue belt, but if you train smart, you could someday become a black belt that's very technical and skilled, and has been avoiding injuries ever since you got your blue belt. So Frank, I hope I haven't ruffled your feathers too much. I really urge you to own your injuries. Take responsibility for them. Don't blame other people. And I think that will be the biggest reduction of injuries in anybody's jiu-jitsu game, or anything on and off the mat as far as trying to get better at something. Own the stuff that's happening that's poorly, and make changes. So thanks for the question. If you have a question, send it to bjjbrick@gmail.com. I'd love to help you out. Please, if you enjoyed the video, like it or comment below. I'd like to hear what you think about this. I know this could probably be a little controversial as far as owning your own injuries. And share the video if it's been at all a help to you and you think it can help your friends. Thanks, guys. Look forward to your next question.
There we go. So that type of question and answer thing is going on our YouTube channel. Check it out, subscribe to the channel, and you'll get lots more action just like that.
Yeah, it's always good to get action. Byron actually, that's the only reason we started jiu-jitsu. But make sure you tell all your friends about, not only about our YouTube page, but, about our podcast. Tell them to go on to the Facebook page and give us a like. We always appreciate it.
Yep. I'm going to air a little clip here from a throwback episode of Matt Tales. So this is Matt Tales. We need more Matt Tales. We're having to do some throwbacks to kind of see if the segment will come back. We need your crazy stories about jiu-jitsu or semi about jiu-jitsu, and we like to make them into stories just like this. So here we go. This is Matt Tales. We bring you amazing jiu-jitsu stories. The story might be funny, unfortunate, it could be about an epic fail or an epic win. So sit back, my friend, relax, dry off your sweat from rolling, and enjoy Matt Tales. It was drilling time at the gym. We were lined up in a large classroom waiting for our turn to drill the position with an opponent. I noticed a young lady waiting in front of me. She seemed a little apprehensive, and I hadn't seen her at the gym before. I yelled at one of my mates, "Hey Albie, do that move." I said to the young lady, I like to encourage the guys to help them out. I don't know what move I meant, but Albie will make sense out of it, and it could help him out. She looked at me and seemed a little more relaxed. She said,
I want to say something, but I don't know what to say.
I told her, just say something motivational. It doesn't matter. It just matters that they hear you and they'll make sense out of it. After all, yelling something motivational to your teammates can make the difference to them doing better. She said again,
But I don't know what to say, though.
I was stuck. Then I remembered the old desk calendars that had motivational quotes on them each day. So I said, just say something motivational, like what's on the calendar. Without questioning, she took the advice and confidently yelled,
January!
The moment she said it, she realized it was wrong. But she said it with enough conviction, everyone looked at her. Of course she was embarrassed, so was I. It turns out, not too many young people know about the old desk calendars with the quotes at the bottom of each page. I apologized to her, but she was laughing at herself so much, it was a fun time. Her nickname is now January. I told her in time, people won't call you January. They'll just call you Jan. Then you'll have to explain to the new people why you were called Jan. This has been Matt Tales. Some of the names and places may have changed. We may have, in fact, taken some creative liberties with the story. In order to keep Matt Tales going, we need more tales. Tales from listeners like you. Send your Matt Tales to bjjbrick@gmail.com. We look forward to hearing your amazing stories. Thank you for listening this week, guys. We do have some big supporters of the show, and they are on Patreon. Patreon's a website that supports content producers like podcasters. And if you think, yeah, that show's worth $1 an episode, or maybe even $2, go to Patreon. There's a link to it in the show notes. And you could send a little bit of money our way each time we make a show. And it really means a lot to us that people are doing this and really helping us out. The app wouldn't have been possible without Patreon supporters, and the podcast likely would have been abandoned a while back when we had some problems with some hackers, I don't know, a year or two ago. But Patreon has helped out a ton with these aspects of the podcast, and also helped with motivation, keeping us going strong. So if you want to support us, help keep us doing what we're doing, Patreon is a big deal. We'll send you out a 5-inch BJJ Brick key patch and some stickers as a token of our appreciation. But you guys mean so much more to us than just that. So thanks so much for the Patreon supporters we have today.
Yeah, definitely. Like Byron said, there's no way this show would keep going without you. So we really, really appreciate all of you.
Real quick before we let you go, the year is kind of headed towards the end. We're looking for our contest back up, the BJJ Brick Coach of the Year contest. If you want to nominate your coach, it's kind of an essay style contest. Tell us why your coach is great. Tell us what they're doing to help the people, the community, whatever. Tell us the story of your coach and your relationship, whatever you have. We'll assemble a bunch of essays together. We assembled a little team of reviewers, and they picked a coach last year. It was really cool, and we're going to be doing it again this year. So just telling you, kind of get this thing going here. If you want to send in your coach, or an essay about your coach, bjjbrick@gmail.com is where you send it. If you want to get a hold of us, that's also a good place. And we'll pile them up, and we'll see what we have at the end of the year. Looking forward to this one.
Yep, and kind of like what we said last year, definitely put a little bit of time into it if you want your instructor to win. If we get a sentence or two, it's hard to pick that one versus the person who, wrote a paragraph or two. So tell us why, put it into words. And, this is really fun. It was, and then we, hopefully too, if your instructor agrees to it, whoever wins, we will have them on the show like we did last year.
Yeah.
So, good times.
Good advice, Gary. We got a few some more short submissions. My coach is great. I really love him. I just got my blue belt. That's not going to compete against the coach that has you need to tell us a story and really kind of sell us on why your coach is great. I guarantee we're going to get several great stories that are just amazing. And if you send in one telling how your coach is good, I'm glad you like your coach. It's awesome. But you need to tell us why. You need to tell us a little bit of a story. And those are the ones that have a chance at winning, most likely. So, so think about getting that typed up and figure out what you want to say to us. You have a little bit of time here. But I've had a great episode, guys. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, definitely. I think, to be honest, it gets more fun each and every time, just kind of like jiu-jitsu. So, as always, stay sweaty, my friends.
And we'll catch you next week. Don't forget to shower.
Thank you for listening. I hope you find the time today to roll. After all, the best way to get better at Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is to do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
Hey, my friends, this is Byron here, coming at you from the editing studio. I just wanted to remind you to go to iTunes or the Google Play Store and download our app. You have to search for the term BJJ Brick, all one word. It'll pop right up. Download it for free. What you're going to find on there is some extra stuff. This episode, look for this segment called After the Show. It's going to be a reoccurring thing that we do on the app. And it just kind of carries the conversation on with what's going on after the show, a little inside peek of what's happening. And Gary and I have very fun conversations after the show, and I figured I'd share those with you guys on the app. So go download the app. It's super easy way to get a little more BJJ Brick. Easy way to listen to the podcast is on the app. And if you're wanting to share this show with somebody, tell them that the app is there and how to get that. It's super easy. If somebody hasn't even heard of a podcast, this is probably the easiest way to find it and play it. So thank you so much for listening. Hope you guys have a good week, and we will catch you guys next week.